The first snowflake landed on my windshield as I turned onto the winding road leading to Aspen. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white against the black leather. The weather forecast hadn't mentioned snow, at least not this early. But in Colorado's mountains, especially during late November, weather forecasts were more like suggestions than predictions. I checked my phone one last time before the signal bars disappeared completely. Thomas's last message still glowed on the screen: "Just make sure the cabin is ready for Christmas. And Ava, talk to Jack if you can." If I can. The words echoed in my mind as I navigated the increasingly treacherous road. Last night's Thanksgiving dinner still played like a broken record in my thoughts. The way Jack had stormed out after Thomas announced the acquisition plans. The shattered wine glass. The stunned silence of our guests. The cabin emerged through the thickening snow, a massive structure of wood and glass perched on the mountainside. My SUV's headlights caught the first few flakes swirling in the darkening sky. Something about the scene made my stomach tighten. I pulled into the covered parking area, killing the engine but remaining in my seat. The silence was immediate and complete. My breath fogged the window as I stared at the cabin that had been in Thomas's family for generations. A place of countless Christmas celebrations and summer getaways. Now it felt like a fortress I had to breach. The security keypad beeped as I entered the code, my designer boots crunching in the fresh snow. Inside, the air was stale and cold. I fumbled for the light switch, and warm LED lights illuminated the great room. Modern furniture mixed with rustic charm, my contribution to the cabin's recent renovation. My heels clicked against the hardwood floors as I moved through the space, turning on the heating system. The sound echoed off the vaulted ceilings, making me feel smaller than usual. I pulled out my phone, opening Instagram out of habit. No signal. Of course. A notification had snuck through before I lost connection, Clara checking if I'd arrived safely. I'd have to wait to respond. The wind picked up outside, whistling through the trees. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching as the snow began falling faster. Heavier. My reflection stared back at me, shoulder-length dark hair, tailored blazer, the perfect image of a Silicon Valley executive. Sometimes I barely recognized myself. The old easel in the corner caught my eye, covered in a sheet. My Christmas gift from last year, still unused. "You used to paint," Thomas had said when he gave it to me. Used to. Past tense. Like so many things in my life. The heating system hummed to life, but I couldn't shake the chill that had settled in my bones. I was about to head upstairs to check the bedrooms when headlights swept across the windows. My heart jumped into my throat. No one else was supposed to be here. The crunch of tires on snow grew louder, then stopped. I moved to the window, my pulse quickening. A dark figure emerged from a black Range Rover. Tall. Familiar. Jack. He moved with the same confidence as his father, but there was something softer in his stance. Less rigid. More real. I watched as he retrieved a bag from the back seat, his movements deliberate. Unhurried. As if he had every right to be here. Maybe he did. The security keypad beeped again. My hands were trembling slightly as I smoothed down my blazer. Professional. Distant. Safe. The door opened, bringing with it a burst of cold air and snowflakes. And Jack. His dark hair was dusted with snow, his architect's eye taking in the room before landing on me. Ava. One word. My name had never sounded so heavy. Jack. I managed to keep my voice steady. I didn't expect you here. Clearly. A ghost of a smile played at his lips. Dad's idea? He asked me to prepare the cabin for Christmas. Of course he did. Jack shrugged off his coat, revealing a charcoal sweater that fit him perfectly. Too perfectly. I turned away, moving toward the kitchen. I should check the supplies. The storm's getting worse. His words stopped me. I turned back, following his gaze to the windows. The snow was falling so heavily now that the trees were mere shadows. The forecast didn't mention. It's Colorado. He cut me off, moving to the fireplace. Weather changes its mind faster than my father changes investment strategies. The bitterness in his voice was new. Or maybe I was just noticing it for the first time. I watched as he expertly arranged logs in the fireplace, his movements precise. Practiced. You don't have to stay, I said, even as the wind howled outside. He struck a match, the small flame illuminating his face for a moment. Actually, I do. The fire caught, casting dancing shadows across the room. The roads will be impassable soon, he continued, standing up. We're both stuck here. My phone buzzed in my pocket, one last gasp of signal. A weather alert. Severe storm warning. I looked up to find Jack watching me, his expression unreadable. The fire crackled between us, and something else crackled too. Something dangerous. Something we'd both been ignoring since that first family dinner when Thomas introduced us. The wind screamed outside, rattling the windows, trapping us together in this beautiful cage of wood and glass, with nothing but our unspoken words and the growing storm between us. The heating system sputtered once, twice, then died. The lights flickered ominously. Perfect, I muttered, wrapping my arms around myself. Jack moved to the control panel, his frown illuminated by the fire's glow. Backup generator should kick in. Should. But didn't. The lights went out completely, leaving us in firelight and shadows. I could hear Jack's quiet breathing, too close in the darkness. There are emergency supplies in the basement, he said. Flashlights, blankets. I'll get them. We'll get them. His hand found my elbow in the dark, steady and warm. I pulled away as if burned. I know where they are. The stairs are treacherous in the dark. He was right. I knew he was right. But having him this close was its own kind of treacherous. The basement stairs creaked under our careful steps. Jack's phone provided a weak light, casting strange shadows on the walls. The temperature dropped with each step down. The basement was a cavern of boxes and old furniture. Memories stored away and forgotten. There. Jack's light caught the emergency supplies cabinet. We gathered what we needed in silence. Flashlights. Blankets. His hand brushed mine as we reached for the same blanket. A jolt of electricity shot through me. Static from the dry air. Nothing more. It couldn't be more. Back upstairs, the fire had grown stronger, but the room was already cooling. Jack checked his phone. No signal. Same. We should conserve the batteries. He was right again. The phones went dark. The fire became our only light. Our only heat. I sat on the couch, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Professional distance was harder to maintain when you were freezing. Jack added another log to the fire, then settled on the opposite end of the couch. Far enough to be proper. Close enough to share warmth. The wind continued its assault outside. About last night, he began. We don't have to discuss it. Don't we? I stared into the fire, avoiding his gaze. Your father's offer was generous. It was a hostile takeover dressed up as generosity. The bitterness was back in his voice. He wants to help. He wants to control. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the crackling fire. You're shivering, he observed. I was. The temperature was dropping rapidly. We need to share body heat. My head snapped up. What? Basic survival, Ava. His voice was carefully neutral. The fire won't be enough. He was right for the third time. I hated that he was right. He moved closer, bringing his blanket with him. I could smell his cologne. Subtle. Expensive. Dangerous. This isn't appropriate, I whispered. Freezing to death would be less appropriate. A laugh escaped me, surprising us both. The tension cracked slightly. He arranged the blankets over both of us, careful not to touch me more than necessary. But even that minimal contact was too much. Too little. The fire painted shadows on his face, highlighting cheekbones that matched his father's. But his eyes were different. Warmer. More alive. Tell me about your art, he said suddenly. I stiffened. There's nothing to tell. The easel in the corner suggests otherwise. That was Thomas's misguided attempt at. At what? At fixing something that isn't broken. The fire popped loudly, making me jump. Jack's hand steadied me automatically, resting on my shoulder, burning through the fabric of my blazer. Are you sure about that? He asked softly. I pulled away. Stood up. The cold hit me immediately. I need some water. The kitchen was dark and freezing. My hands shook as I filled a glass from the tap. What was I doing? What were we doing? The glass slipped from my trembling fingers. Shattered on the floor. Ava? Jack's voice was closer than I expected. Don't move, I warned. There's glass everywhere. Are you hurt? I'm fine. But I wasn't. Nothing about this was fine. He appeared in the doorway, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Finding me surrounded by broken glass. Like a metaphor for everything I was trying to hold together. Let me help. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. The flashlight beam didn't waver. You can't stand there forever. I can try. Another laugh escaped him this time. The sound warmed me more than the fire had. Carefully, he picked his way through the glass. Reached for me. Trust me. 2 words. They shouldn't have meant anything. They meant everything. His hands found my waist. Strong. Steady. Lifted me clear of the glass. Set me down. But didn't let go. We stood there in the darkness. His hands on my waist. My heart in my throat. The storm raged outside. And something just as powerful raged within. The moment stretched like a thread about to snap. His hands burned through my silk blouse, leaving imprints I was sure would be visible in daylight. "Jack," I whispered. A warning. A plea. I wasn't sure which. He stepped back, the loss of contact hitting me like a physical blow. "We should clean up the glass," he said, voice rough. Professional. Distant. Safe. We worked in silence, the flashlight beam illuminating shards that glittered like fallen stars. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The cold, I told myself. Nothing more. Back in the great room, the fire had died down to embers. Jack added more logs while I huddled under the blankets, watching his movements. Efficient. Graceful. Everything his father wasn't. "Tell me about your architecture," I said, surprising myself. He paused, poker in hand. "What do you want to know? Why does it matter so much?" The fire sparked to life again. He sat beside me, closer than before. "Because it's mine," he said simply. Not his. I understood that better than he knew. The wind howled louder, rattling the windows like a living thing trying to get in. "The storm's getting worse," I observed. "It'll pass." But his tone suggested otherwise. The temperature continued to drop. I could see our breath now, small clouds in the firelight. "Come here," he said softly. I hesitated. "Ava, you're turning blue." He was exaggerating. But my teeth were chattering. Slowly, I moved closer. He arranged the blankets around us both, his arm coming around my shoulders. Natural. Inevitable. Wrong. "Tell me about your paintings," he murmured. His breath stirred my hair. "They weren't very good." "I doubt that. You haven't seen them." "I've seen the way you look at color." That stopped me. "What do you mean?" "The way you redesigned this place. Every shade perfectly chosen. Like a canvas." Something in my chest tightened. "That's different." "Is it?" His fingers traced patterns on my shoulder through the blanket. Unconsciously, I thought. Hoped. "Why did you stop?" he pressed. The fire crackled, sending sparks up the chimney. "Life happened," I said finally. "Career. Marriage. Reality. Reality is what we make it." I turned to look at him. A mistake. His face was too close. His eyes too understanding. "Is that why you won't sell to your father?" His jaw tightened. "I built that firm from nothing. Every design, every client, every success and failure, they're mine. He wants to help you succeed." "No." His voice was hard. "He wants to own my success." There's a difference. The bitterness in his tone made me shiver. Or maybe it was the cold. His arm tightened around me. "I've watched you," he said quietly. My heart stuttered. "What?" "At family dinners. Business meetings. Always perfect. Always controlled. Always what everyone expects." "Stop. But sometimes, just sometimes, I see you look at that easel. Or a sunset. Or a particularly beautiful building. And for a moment, you're free." I pulled away. Stood up. The cold hit me like a wall. "You don't know me. Don't I?" He stood too, the blanket falling away. "We're both living someone else's version of our lives." "That's not true." But my voice lacked conviction. He stepped closer. "Isn't it?" My back hit the window. Cold glass through thin silk. He braced one hand against the window beside my head. "Tell me you're happy, Ava." The words died in my throat. His other hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek. "Tell me this is the life you wanted." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. His touch burned against my skin. "Jack, please. Tell me you don't feel this." The storm raged outside. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. The hunger there. The need. Thunder crashed, shaking the windows. And something in me shattered. My hands fisted in his sweater. Pulled him closer. His lips found mine in the darkness. Desperate. Hungry. Everything we'd been holding back exploded in that kiss. His hands tangled in my hair. My back pressed against the cold glass. The contrast of temperatures, his heat, the window's chill, made me gasp. He took advantage, deepening the kiss. Tasting. Taking. Giving. The storm matched our intensity, lightning turning night to day. Thunder shaking the mountains. We broke apart, breathing hard. Reality crashed back like a tidal wave. "Oh God," I whispered. Horror dawned in his eyes. He stepped back. 1 step. 2. "Ava, don't." I pushed past him. Ran up the stairs. Found the master bedroom. Locked the door. Slid down against it. My lips burned. My heart raced. Everything was ruined. Through the door, I heard his footsteps. Slow. Heavy. They paused outside. "Ava." My name like a prayer. Like a curse. "Go away. We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about." Silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. "Liar." His footsteps retreated. I pressed my fingers to my lips. They still tingled. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, a different kind of storm was just beginning. I didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. The storm held all night, matching the chaos in my mind. When dawn finally came, it brought with it a world transformed. Everything was white. Pure. Untouched. Unlike me. I waited until I heard Jack moving around downstairs. The smell of coffee drifted up. My stomach clenched. Professional. Distant. Safe. I repeated it like a mantra as I dressed. When I finally descended the stairs, he was standing at the windows. Coffee cup in hand. Shoulders tense. He turned at my footsteps. The roads are blocked. 3 words. They hit like bullets. What? We're snowed in. I moved to the window. He was right. The world outside was a white wasteland. No sign of the driveway. No sign of escape. How long? I managed to ask. Until the plows come through. Could be hours. Could be days. Days. The word echoed in my head. Days trapped here. With him. With what we'd done. What we wanted to do again. The coffee cup clinked as he set it down. Ava. Don't. I wrapped my arms around myself. We can't pretend it didn't happen. Yes, we can. Look at me. I didn't. Couldn't. Please. That word again. It undid me. I turned. His eyes held mine. Dark. Intense. Full of everything we couldn't say. What do you want from me? I whispered. He took a step closer. I took a step back. The truth, he said simply. The truth? I laughed, the sound brittle. The truth is I'm married to your father. That's a fact. Not the truth. What's the difference? The fact is you're my father's wife. The truth is what happened last night. My back hit the wall. He kept coming. The truth is what happens every time we're in the same room. Another step. The truth is what you feel right now. He stopped inches away. Close enough to touch. Close enough to taste. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I should have. God help me, I should have. But the words wouldn't come. His hand came up. Cupped my cheek. His thumb traced my lower lip. Tell me you don't want this. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. Not to him. Not to myself. When his lips met mine this time, it was gentle. Questioning. Giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I pulled him closer. The kiss deepened. Intensified. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine slipped under his sweater. Found warm skin. Muscle. Truth. The sound of a helicopter broke through our haze. We jumped apart. Guilty. Breathless. The chopping grew louder. Then a voice through a megaphone. This is search and rescue. We're conducting wellness checks. Please signal if you need assistance. Reality crashed back. Hard. Cold. Unforgiving. Jack moved to the window. Raised his hand. The helicopter hovered. Roads should be clear by nightfall, the voice announced. Stay warm and safe. Then it was gone. Leaving us in silence. In truth. In consequences. I looked at Jack. He looked at me, and we both knew nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a dance of avoidance and attraction. Every room felt too small. Every silence too loud. Every accidental touch too electric. The roads cleared, but something else had clouded between us. Back in Silicon Valley, life resumed its carefully choreographed routine. Meetings, conference calls, dinner parties. But nothing felt normal anymore. I caught myself watching Jack across crowded rooms. The way he moved. The way he spoke. The way he deliberately avoided looking at me. Clara noticed first. "You seem different," she said over yoga and green smoothies. I focused on my breathing. In. Out. Just stressed about work. She didn't believe me. I could tell. But she didn't push. That's why we were friends. Thomas was too busy with the merger to notice anything amiss. Late nights at the office. Business trips. Quick kisses on the cheek as he rushed out the door. But Jack noticed everything. The way I tensed when he entered a room. The way my voice changed when I spoke to him. The way I couldn't meet his eyes at family dinners. It was at one such dinner that everything started to unravel. Greg watched us with shrewd eyes over his wine glass. Calculating. Observing. "Jack," he said suddenly. "How's that new downtown project coming along?" Simple words. Loaded meaning. Jack's jaw tightened. On schedule. Interesting. Greg swirled his wine. I heard there were some complications. My hand trembled as I reached for my water. Nothing I can't handle. Of course not. Greg's smile didn't reach his eyes. Though I'm sure your father's offer still stands. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I've made my position clear. Have you? Greg's gaze flicked to me. On everything? My heart stopped. Jack's knuckles went white around his fork. Thomas, oblivious, checked his phone. Speaking of the project, he said, we should schedule a site visit. Not necessary, Jack's voice was tight. I insist. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Final. I excused myself to the kitchen. Needed air. Space. Escape. Footsteps followed me. Not Jack's. Greg's. Beautiful evening, he said, closing the kitchen door. My hands shook as I reached for the wine bottle. What do you want, Greg? Direct. I like that. He moved closer. Too close. I want you to be careful. The wine sloshed as I poured. I don't know what you're talking about. No? He reached past me for a glass. The lingering looks. The tension? The way you both leave a room when the other enters? My blood ran cold. You're imagining things. Am I? His voice dropped lower. Does Thomas imagine things too? The wine glass slipped from my hand. Crashed to the floor. Red spreading like blood across white marble. Everything okay in there? Thomas called. Just an accident, Greg answered smoothly. I'm helping Ava clean up. He handed me a towel. Leaned in close. Consider this a friendly warning. The door opened. Jack stood there. Saw Greg's proximity. The spilled wine. My pale face. His expression darkened. Everything all right? Perfect, Greg straightened, smiling. Just perfect. The next day, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A photo. My heart stopped. It was us. At the cabin. By the window. Kissing. Another message followed. Decisions have consequences. I deleted both. Blocked the number. But the damage was done. That night, I couldn't sleep. The city lights painted patterns on my ceiling. Thomas's breathing beside me was steady. Regular. Trusting. My phone lit up. Jack. We need to talk. 3 words. They changed everything. I slipped out of bed. Down to the garden. The night was cool. Clear. Stars scattered like broken glass across the sky. He was waiting by the pool. The blue light made him look unreal. Greg knows. I know. He sent me pictures. Me too. Silence stretched between us. Filled with everything we couldn't say. What do we do? I whispered. He moved closer. We could tell the truth. And destroy everything? Everything's already destroyed. He wasn't wrong. The facade was cracking. The perfect life I'd built was dissolving like sugar in rain. I can't, I said finally. His face hardened. Can't or won't? Both. Coward. The word hit like a slap. That's not fair. None of this is fair. He ran a hand through his hair. Frustrated. Angry. Beautiful. I'm not asking you to blow up your life, he said softly. I'm asking you to live it. By destroying your father? He's survived worse. Jack. Don't. He stepped closer. Too close. Not close enough. Don't say my name like that unless you mean it. His hand found my cheek. Warm. Familiar. Dangerous. Tell me you don't love me. The words hung in the night air. Sharp as broken glass. Sweet as poison. I can't. Then tell me you love him more. Tears burned behind my eyes. Please don't do this. Someone has to. His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. The truth comes out eventually, Ava. Not if we stop now. He laughed. Bitter. Broken. Beautiful. Stop? His voice was rough. Do you really think we can? His lips found mine before I could answer. Desperate. Hungry. Home. A came. R.A. clicked. We broke apart. Sabrina stood at the edge of the pool. Phone raised. Smiling. Well, she said. This is interesting. The world tilted on its axis. Shattered. reformed into something darker, more dangerous. And there was no going back. Not anymore. Everything exploded in slow motion after that night. Sabrina's smile haunted my dreams. Her phone became a weapon, a ticking time bomb waiting to destroy us all. The next morning, an email arrived. Subject: your choice. 3 photos attached, each one worse than the last. My hands shook as I deleted them. But you can't delete truth. It stays, lingers, grows. Jack tried to handle it. I saw him cornering Sabrina at a charity gala. Their heated whispers carried across the room. Her laugh was like breaking glass. You can't buy what isn't for sale, she said loud enough for me to hear. Greg watched from the bar, smirking, orchestrating. Thomas remained oblivious. Or maybe he wasn't. Sometimes I caught him watching me. A strange expression on his face. Like he was trying to solve a puzzle. One he didn't want to complete. The pressure built. Day by day. Hour by hour. Until I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't pretend. It broke on a Tuesday. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Until it wasn't. My phone buzzed during a meeting. A video this time. Us by the pool. With an attached message. Time's running out. I excused myself. Ran to the bathroom. Threw up everything I'd eaten that day. When I looked in the mirror, a stranger stared back. Pale. Haunted. Lost. My phone buzzed again. Jack. Meet me. I shouldn't have gone. Should have deleted the message. Should have done a lot of things differently. But I went. The coffee shop was crowded. Anonymous. Safe. He sat in the corner. Dark circles under his eyes. Hair disheveled. Beautiful. They want money, he said without preamble. How much? More than I have. I could. No. His voice was hard. Final. This ends now. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I'm telling him. Jack, no. Yes. He reached across the table. Took my hand. I'm tired of hiding. It will destroy him. He's destroying us. Truth in every syllable. There has to be another way. There isn't. His thumb traced patterns on my palm. Familiar. Comforting. Terrifying. I love you, he said simply. The words hung between us. Heavy with consequence. I know. Then fight for this. I can't. Can't or won't. The same question. Different answer. Both. I pulled my hand away. Stood up. Ava. My name. A plea. A prayer. A goodbye. I walked away. Left him sitting there. Broken. Determined. Dangerous. That night, Thomas was late again. I sat in the dark. Waiting. The grandfather clock ticked away the seconds, each one bringing us closer to destruction. When he finally came home, he smelled of whiskey. Late meeting, he said. Didn't look at me. Thomas. Not now, Ava. But there wouldn't be a later. Not anymore. We need to talk. He stopped. Turned. Something in my voice must have warned him. What's wrong? Everything. Nothing. Us. I. The doorbell rang. Loud. Insistent. Thomas frowned. Who could that be at this hour? I knew. Somehow, I knew. He opened the door. Jack stood there. Rain-soaked. Wild-eyed. Determined. We need to talk, he said. The same words I tried to say. Thomas looked between us. Understanding dawning slowly. Terribly. Both of you? Jack nodded. Both of us. Thomas stepped back. Let him in. Closed the door. The sound was final. Like a coffin lid closing. Well, he said, pouring himself another whiskey. Talk. The storm outside matched the one in my chest. Lightning flashed. Thunder rolled. And the truth came out. All of it. The cabin. The kisses. The love we tried to deny. The blackmail. The pain. Thomas listened. Silent. Still. When we finished, he drained his glass. Set it down carefully. Too carefully. How long? Since the storm, Jack answered. And you? He looked at me. His eyes were empty. Since always, I whispered. The truth at last. He nodded once. Stood up. Walked to the window. Get out. 2 words. Soft. Final. Dad. Get out. The glass shattered against the wall. Amber liquid running like tears. I flinched. Jack didn't. We never meant. To what? Thomas turned. To hurt me? To destroy everything? To make a fool of me? His laugh was horrible. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. Thomas, please. Don't. He held up a hand. Just don't. The silence stretched. Thick. Suffocating. I want you both gone by morning. He walked out. Up the stairs. The bedroom door slammed, leaving us in the wreckage of what we'd done. Jack reached for me. I stepped back. Don't. Ava. This is what you wanted, isn't it? The words came out sharp. Bitter. The truth? He flinched. Not like this. How then? But there was no good answer. No right way to destroy a life. I went upstairs. Packed a bag. Left my ring on the dresser. When I came down, Jack was waiting. Where will you go? Does it matter? He reached for me again. This time I let him. His arms were warm, familiar. Home. But home was a lie now. Everything was. I love you, he whispered into my hair. I know. I pulled away. Walked to the door. Ava, wait. I didn't. Couldn't. The rain was cold. Cleansing. I got in my car. Started the engine. Watched in the rearview mirror as Jack stood in the doorway. Watching. Waiting. Hoping. I drove away. Left them both. The father. The son. The life I'd built. The love I'd found. All of it. The storm raged on. But inside, finally, there was peace. The truth was out. And I was free. And